Yo, yo, yo. This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss, co-host of PBS's MotorWeek. He'll take your calls and comments now at 844-885-4677 or email him at radio@goss-garage.com. And now, Pat Goss. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Goss's Garage. I'm Pat Goss. I'd like to talk to you about anything at all that you might want to talk about that deals with cars. 844-885-4677. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to have John Davis from MotorWeek. But first, we have a very serious problem concerning drivers and automobiles in general, something that is just becoming outrageous. Now, it is deadly. And apparently it is becoming every driver's sacred right. It is road rage. And it's estimated that 2 out of every 3 traffic deaths are now somehow related to road rage. Also, 37% of road rage incidents involve at least one firearm. Now that's scary at best, deadly at its worst. Oh my God, over 200 murders in a 7-year period that were directly related to road rage. Now let's face it, road rage is as ignorant gets and has foolishly ruined thousands of lives. Sadly, most road rage incidents are the result of a simple mistake. Think about it. Have you ever made a mistake while driving? Well, of course you have. We all have. I recently saw a senseless road rage incident where a youngish-looking driver drifted into the lane of an older guy driving a very expensive car. Now, it appeared to be an innocent mistake because it looked like the young driver was distracted by texting. Bad news, but not a good reason for what followed. No matter what the reason was, the older driver had to hit his brakes. And that's all it took for an apparently sane driver to mutate into full-blown insanity. Finger flipping, horn blowing, tailgating, speeding, weaving in and out of traffic. All the aggressive crap that too often turns an innocent mistake into headline video on the evening news. Now, unless the older, aggressive driver was not human, he has probably made the same mistake sometime during his driving life, maybe even more than once. Yet there he was, at a stoplight, threatening the other driver and calling him ignorant. Whoa. Now, who's ignorant here? The driver who made an innocent mistake, or the self-entitled jerk who could have easily ruined several lives? I'm thinking it's the jerk. Now, in this case, the jerk. I thought was going to see something horrific because the jerk escalated things to a whole new and terrifying level when he pulled a gun and aimed it at the younger driver. Fortunately, the younger driver made his escape through an opening in traffic, or who knows what might have happened. Every driver occasionally makes a mistake, but most of those mistakes are not aggressive or aimed at another driver. They're just mistakes. So unless you escalate a mistake into something it isn't, you won't even remember it tomorrow. But if you escalate it into disrespect and aggression and then do something stupid that further escalates the situation, you could destroy your life and the lives of others. If you were watching a TV sitcom, you would probably laugh your ass off at a skit about a funny driving situation. Unfortunately, out on the road, you might get mad, and mad often means incredibly stupid. So rather than get mad and stupid, just smile at the stupidity of the situation like you do when the same thing happens on TV and let it go. 10 seconds of anger can ruin your life or cost a life. Please drive gently and be tolerant of other drivers. Remember, we all make mistakes behind the wheel. Let them remain mistakes. The holidays are upon us and stress levels are skyrocketing. So remember, laugh at the stupid mistakes of other drivers. Please don't escalate them into a deadly, senseless confrontation. All right, enough said on that. Now we want to talk to our good friend from MotorWeek, Mr. John Davis. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Pat Goss.
How you doing?
Very good. And you? It's cold this morning. I hope everybody's got their antifreeze checked.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah.
It's about that time. All right, what you got for us?
Well, according to Bob Lutz, the ex-vice chairman of General Motors, the father of the Viper, and all-around car guy, you may not have to worry about road rage much longer because he's saying that in 15 to 20 years, all drivered cars will be ordered off the road, and everybody will be riding around in Ubers and Lyfts that are autonomous and electric, and they'll come pick you up in the morning and take you back at night. And the only way you actually get to drive a car is to go to a racetrack or a closed country club course or something like that, because the government's going to come in and say you got 5 years to get rid of your car. This article, which was a beginning of a series by Automotive News, the industry publication, has started a firestorm of of other opinions coming out of the earth this week. But, you know, this is the guy who's got more gasoline in his veins than most cars have in a full tank.
Yeah, he's been there, he's done it. He's done just about everything.
It was very interesting. After he made this prediction, Carlos Ghosn, who's been running Nissan and Renault forever, he basically came out and said, wait a minute, we're planning on building cars that people want to buy and drive for a long time. And Toyota, just the day before, or actually in this same series of articles, the head of Toyota, Mr. Toyoda, he said they're planning to make cars for the next 100 years. So it's really fascinating that you've got this, on one hand, someone that I certainly respect and would never want to bet against, talking about the demise of the personal automobile within 2 decades.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would go along with the 2 decades, but, when you stop and think about it, the way we approach automobiles, yes, we love them, we love to drive them and so on, but the reality is it is a very crude and ridiculous way to operate such a piece of equipment.
Well, yeah, and that's behind what he's saying and a lot of other people that say governments will simply legislate them off the road because it's so unsafe. My problem with that is the government, all of these predictions like that, do not take into consideration the pushback from the public. They also don't take into consideration that while you may be able to have huge fleets of Uber vehicles in a city and Uber will be happy with that, when you get out to the suburbs and you have to wait 30 minutes for the nearest Uber to get to you because there aren't very many of them out there, I should say the country, not even the suburbs, it just doesn't make sense. And we're also ignoring some fundamental things about you really going to tell 300 million people that they have to junk their cars within 5 years. Maybe that'll work in China. Maybe it might even work someplace in Europe, but I just don't think it's going to work here.
Yeah, you're probably right.
At least not for maybe, I'll give it 50 to 100 years, not 20.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, I can't imagine that even in this day and age that even the plan for something like that could be drafted in 20 years.
We can't even decide what taxes to boost and cut. I mean, and you're going to talk about a wholesale change in the American lifestyle forced on by a government? It would have to be a dictator.
All right, I'm not going to go.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying that there's one now.
I know. I'm not saying it either. Wouldn't think of it.
Well, you know, I think actually, to be honest with you, we're about as far from that as possible.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, folks, 844-885-4677 if you want to talk to John Davis from MotorWeek or myself. So I'm not going to have a car to drive in 20 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, the article goes on. I assume you read it. You know, they talk about they'll have these drivers clubs that'll pop up like country clubs, and everybody will take their antique Mustangs and Ferraris there and drive them around and pay somebody a lot of money to let them do it.
No.
The other interesting news this week is we heard earlier in the week that Mahindra, which is a first or second biggest automaker in India, and has been making and selling farm equipment here for a long time, is going to announce that they're going to build an assembly plant in Michigan, and that's a big deal in itself. It apparently is going to build some kind of an off-road vehicle, meaning something not street legal. Everybody's sort of betting it might be some kind of small farm-oriented pickup truck. But there's also a further report that Mahindra is going to start bringing in vehicles from its Korean affiliate, which is SsangYong Motors, in the very near future, and they're looking at that. This is more significant because obviously it would be direct competition for Kia and for Hyundai and for everybody else. They make a series of SUVs and, I think more importantly, a small, sporty pickup truck, the size of which there is nothing in this country right now, and the size that Hyundai is talking about bringing out soon. So we could be adding another Korean nameplate to the U.S. I'm not sure if they would market it under that name or pick something that maybe Americans might have a little easier time saying. But, you know, every time somebody says cars are appliances and nobody cares about cars again, and you realize how important the U.S. market is, and here may be coming not one but two more brands.
Wow. Hey, that brings up an interesting thing. What is your take on what happened to the small pickup trucks? You know, for years we had all of these trucks from Toyota and Nissan and so on, nice, small, economical trucks, and all of a sudden they're all gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I own. I have a Ranger. I've had it now for, gosh, I don't know. I guess I've had it for about 12 years. Excuse me. It was a 2003, and I bought it because I liked it better than what I was seeing, where the Chevys and the Toyotas and all were starting to get bigger and bigger. What I was always told by the people in Detroit, and specifically from Ford, is that it cost them just as much money to build a Ranger as it did an F-150, or almost as much. And they weren't able to price it to make the same amount of profit. They found that when people came into the showroom, they were easily able to push them up to the bigger truck. So they went from two plants to one plant to none. Now everybody would like to have one. If you've got an older Ranger, they're worth a lot of money, vis-a-vis other used vehicles of their age. And we're now seeing one or two or maybe even three offshore brands thinking about bringing something back in. I think it was a giant mistake by the car companies. At the end of its life, the Ranger, when fuel gas was over $4, they were hugely in demand, and they were the most popular. Or I shouldn't say that, the highest fuel economy pickup truck you could buy. Now we're going to get a new Ranger, but it's going to be big. It's going to be the size of a Colorado and Canyon. And, I think bigger is better worked great, but now what we used to call a full-size pickup truck, it's actually as big as what we used to call a heavy-duty pickup truck.
Right.
There's just nothing there if you just want something that doesn't take up a lot of pavement room. You want to run to Home Depot with it and come home. It's going to take somebody offshore probably to do it, and that's too bad because I really think the automakers have missed out on a big market. I mean, just look at how well the Colorado and Canyon have sold, and they're not that small.
Yeah, we, here at our Lanham shop, we had a little Toyota that we used to run parts with and things like that. Had it for years. Just an ideal size because you could park it. You weren't hauling great big humongous stuff. So it just did a great job. And now we've got a full-size Dodge that just sucks up gas, and it's a royal pain to deal with.
Well, they just take up so much room. I brought home a Chevy Colorado the other day and parked it next to my Ranger, and I mean it sticks out another 1.5 feet or so, and it's wider by about 6 inches, and it just I have a relatively generous carport, but I can fill it up pretty quick, and it just takes up too much room.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my Ranger and thinking, I wish somebody was out there that would take them and maybe refurbish them, take all the trim off and make them look like new again. And mine could stand a little TLC.
Yeah. Well, a trip to Home Depot and a roller and...
yeah. Maybe a little tack cloth,
Right. Fix you right up. All right, John, we need
to
take
I'm going to start calling you Earl Scheib in a minute.
Yeah, there we go. We need to take a quick break. If you have a question or a comment for John Davis from MotorWeek, give us a call, 844-885-4677. For those enjoying Goss's Garage on TuneIn.com, please note our new hours at 9 o'clock Eastern every Saturday morning. So keep that in mind. Tune us in. We'll be right back. More with John Davis from MotorWeek coming up on Goss's Garage.
Operators are standing by to take your call for Pat at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
I get lots of air filter questions, and one of the most common deals with why air filters need to be replaced so often. Well, actually, they usually don't. Yet many drivers wind up buying a new air filter at every oil change, which is utterly ridiculous. Drivers say techs tell them if they don't buy a new air filter, they'll waste a lot of gas. Maybe that statement comes from ignorance or maybe dishonesty, but either way, you lose. Decades ago, dirty air filters did waste gas, but today, not so much. Cars now use a sensor to measure the air coming through the air filter, and computers to mix exactly the right amount of gas to match that air. So even though a dirty air filter reduces airflow into the engine, it doesn't affect gas mileage because the computer is always precisely matching fuel to the incoming air. In other words, a dirty filter means less air, and less air means less gas, so there's never an imbalance between air and fuel. Certainly when a filter gets really, really dirty, it can cause performance problems, but even then it may not affect gas mileage. So how long do air filters last? Unless you drive in really dusty conditions, air filters usually last 30 to 60,000 miles. Overselling of air filters is an enormous problem, and the best way not to be taken is to learn how to check your own air filter and check it twice a year. I get lots of questions about BG products, many about specific products or services like, is BG44K really that good, or are BG transmission, cooling system, and power steering flushes actually necessary? But most popular of all, do I use BG products in my cars? Well, the answer to all of those questions is yes. A regular schedule of BG flushes and chemicals will deliver the longest possible life from all the lubricated and fuel delivery parts on your vehicles. And do I use BG products? You bet I do. I drive nice cars, and I drive a lot. Plus, my live radio and TV shows mean that my cars have to be absolutely reliable. A no start from dirty fuel injectors or a failed transmission just isn't acceptable in my life. Remember, deposits and dirty fluids ruin expensive parts. For reliability like I demand, visit one of the quality shops that sell BG products and perform BG services. To find a BG professional near you, bgfindashop.com.
Now, back to Goss's Garage with your host, Pat Goss.
Folks, 844-885-4677 if you want to talk to John Davis from MotorWeek or myself. I'd be glad to talk to you about just about anything that deals with cars or something with an engine in it. John, what things are you seeing that the audience should be aware of?
Well, I think the most important thing is since a lot of people are still buying cars, is they're coming with all of these new safety features like lane keep assist and blind spot monitoring and automatic braking. And they're not really getting any kind of education from the dealerships on how they work, and in most cases it's unsafe to actually test them. And the systems often default to on, and when they first activate, they can frighten you. All these systems are being put on cars as safety items. Many of them come in packages, so you don't even get to pick. And I think the under-education about what these systems can and cannot do is actually making some aspects of driving less safe instead of more safe. It's going to take a while for people to come up to speed. So when they buy a car, once they've gotten over that euphoria, they've got to really sit down and do something that people haven't done in decades, and that is read the owner's manual, start asking questions of the dealer about how stuff operates, and demand that they go over the systems carefully. Give you a case in point. A friend of mine has a new Chevrolet Bolt, and it's got the automatic braking system on it. And, he would really like to experience how this system works, but of course he's too chicken, and I don't blame him. If he gets close to something, he just can't let the car take control. And this is a good thing, but on the other hand, he doesn't really know how capable this system is. So maybe the automakers ought to start showing videos when you buy the car that say, this is what's going to happen. It's going to light up with bells and whistles and warn you, but if you don't brake, this is what will happen. The other thing is, they're not telling people when these systems won't work. Most of these systems are speed dependent. They have a point where they no longer can, say, bring you to a complete stop in the case of automatic braking. And nobody really talks about what that speed is. So there needs to be some advice to the customers like, hey, over 20, 25, 30 miles an hour, these systems may not do what they will do under that speed, like bring you to a complete stop. So I think there's just a gigantic confusion and about these systems, and some of them, frankly, are so annoying that people shut them off and negate their safety aspect.
Probably one of the most common questions that I get every week has to do with airbags. People call me, can you act as an expert? Somebody hit me in the rear end and my airbags didn't go off. And stuff like that. I ran into a guardrail at 40 miles an hour and the airbags didn't go off. Why? There must be a defect.
Because they're not designed to do that.
That's exactly it. And people have no clue that there's a threshold speed. You have to be going X number of miles per hour. They don't realize that you have to see a certain amount of deceleration. In other words, you hit one of these springy guardrails,
Right.
you don't decelerate fast enough.
That's right.
And stuff like that. And people just have no clue.
And I think that's going to be exacerbated by a lot of this new technology. I mean, there've already been some lawsuits where people said the automatic braking systems didn't stop them. But what you never hear in the news report is these people were probably going 70 miles an hour.
Sure.
And these systems won't do that. Now, at some point, when we get to the autonomous driving future that we were talking about earlier, they're going to have to do that. And then think about the amount of G-force that will possibly be on the occupants if you're on an interstate going 70 and you've got to stop on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but right now, I do like some of these systems. I particularly like the emergency braking and the radar cruise control, but I find that people don't get it and therefore either misuse them or don't use them at all.
The one thing that you like and I absolutely hate is radar cruise control.
I have mixed feelings about it. I will tell you, some of the people on our staff absolutely love it. I find that I can tolerate it for certain driving conditions, but if I am kind of not paying 100% attention, I'll start slowing down and I won't even realize it, and that's when it kind of gets annoying to me. So I wouldn't say that I'm 100% on it, but it is interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. My gripe with it is that you are always last in line. You think about it. Somebody pulls in, it slows down, puts the distance between you and that, and as soon as you've got the distance there, some other idiot pulls in, and so you keep dropping back in the queue. And
well, you know, I set mine for the minimum distance, which is maybe not the safest, but for that very reason. So the thing with all of these systems and what we found with the autonomous driving systems out there so much right now is this picture that the public is being given that somehow these systems will enable you to not pay attention is simply not true. They may give you momentary respite from having 100% attention on your driving, but that's about it. I mean, drivers in this country are so incredibly undisciplined compared to many other countries in the world that you can't afford not to be paying attention all the time.
yeah, that's for sure. That's like my car has blind spot and all this stuff, and you have to talk to yourself because it's real easy to fall into the trap of completely relying on blind spot, which you shouldn't do.
No.
Because it's not infallible by any stretch of the imagination. And
I will tell you the one safety aspect that I think should be standard now on all cars, and I wish was easily retrofittable to older cars, is rear view cameras. I've now gotten to the point that if I don't have one on a car, I almost feel unsafe backing up.
Yeah, I've noticed that same feeling. But fortunately, they are relatively easy to retrofit these days.
Yeah, they are, but a lot of people don't like them because they don't look as good. I have a new old car that's got navigation, and I found out that it doesn't have the blind spot, but it actually can be modified to have a camera put on it and have it come up on the navigation screen, which is what I want.
Right.
And that's the direction I'm headed.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of, we've done a few of them, and the way that most of them are done now is you take the tag lights out and you have a new LED tag light with the camera mounted in that position up above the tag.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
so they don't really you know, if you get in the right angle, you can see them, but for the most part, you can't see them.
Well, I may just have to come down to your shop and have you do one of those for me.
All righty. All right, let's take a break. More with John Davis from MotorWeek coming up right here on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Space Saver spare tires sure do look silly, but if you use them properly, they will get you home safely. Now, a common problem with them is low air pressure. Spares are buried in the trunk and no one ever seems to check their pressure. Plus, they typically require much higher pressure than your regular tires. Also, Space Saver spares have limits on how far and how fast you can drive on them. Bottom line, always read and follow the caution warnings on their labels and sidewalls. Oh yeah, don't be one of those poor schmucks with a flat tire and a flat spare. Check your spare once a month. While checking the spare, look at the jack handle, and the lug wrench to be sure everything is there and in working order. The best spare tire in the world is useless without the tools to put it on the car. Some cars may even require special lug nuts to mount the spare. If those special lug nuts are missing, you will have no safe way to use your spare.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Now, Pat Goss.
Hey folks, do you know what these little tools are? If you don't, check us out on YouTube. Goss's Garage on YouTube. And we'll tell you what they are and what you do with them and why they are so important to own. All right, John Davis from MotorWeek. What else do you have?
Well, you know, it's that time of year when the roads are starting to get slick, and, you know, we've certainly had the cold this morning in the Mid-Atlantic area. And a lot of folks are driving around with cars that they've owned maybe for 6 months or so. They bought them in the spring or summer, and they're expensive, and maybe they're European or domestic performance cars, or maybe it's just a brand like BMW and Mercedes and Audi. And they don't realize that the tires they may be riding around on are not winter suitable. They're dry weather tires, summer tires, whatever you want to call them these days. And when the first frozen snowfall falls, they're not going to have very much traction. And I've seen, of course, plenty of all-wheel drive cars that have this situation. So you need to be somewhat aware of what your car came with and whether or not, if you're going to be driving this car in the depths of winter, you need to go out and invest yourself in another set of tires.
Right. You know, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but there's a new generation of all-season tires, and they have the little mountain peak insignia on the side of them, and they're better than the normal all-season tire. They have to meet a certain criteria in snow and so on. Nowhere's near what a dedicated snow tire is, but I guess quite a bit above the norm for all-season tires.
I can't say I've tried them professionally. I do know I was offered a set of them by one brand, which I didn't have a car to put them on. And so I'm kind of interested in trying them. Have you actually seen whether they work?
No, not yet. I mean, of course, they're relatively new, too.
Yeah.
So I will be putting a set of Pirelli Scorpion something or
Yeah.
others
Yeah.
that have that designation. on one of my cars, and we'll see what happens this winter.
That's it. These are the ones that have
Like the three peaks, the mountain peaks, where
Yeah.
the
and then a snowflake in the middle of it.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're calling them severe snow and winter traction tires, I think.
Yeah, but
That's
it's
interesting. They were developed apparently, I guess, mostly for Europeans, but wouldn't that be, yeah, I guess the number one thing that people want to know is, do they ride as quiet as all season? Because that's actually one of the main reasons we even have all season tires, is because they ride quieter.
yeah, supposedly some of these are actually more quiet than a regular all-season tire, and quieter than a snow tire, because they're right in the middle there, and because a lot of the snow tires tend to hum pretty bad.
I'm just reading online here. It says that already some Canadian provinces require tires with that mountain snowflake symbol, or I should say it's acceptable rather than true snow tires or all winter tires.
So it'd be interesting to see how this shakes out, because snow tires don't wear that well.
No.
There are a lot of downsides to them, but if you have to go in the snow, there's nothing on the planet like them. But
Yeah, I know that on our Subaru, when it needs tires, I was planning on going that route. So I'll be very curious to hear what how you like them.
yeah, I'm hoping they're quiet and ride well, because this business of having a really harsh ride, I'm just not into it. Never was, really. If I
No.
wanted a race car, all right, fine, let's go to the racetrack, let's drive a race car and not mess around with it. But to drive something that rides like a race car on the street doesn't have a whole lot of appeal to me.
No, it doesn't. I get that.
Some of the stuff that we get in the shops, I mean, you'd be shocked at how some of these people are modifying these cars. They are almost impossible to drive.
Well, every time you see somebody going down the street with, tires hung out beyond the fender flares and extreme alignment issues, you're just saying that, I guess they think it looks cool, but I think it looks stupid, and my goodness, it must be heck to drive.
Oh, yeah, that's putting it mildly. We see quite a few pickup trucks that have been modified, lifted, and so on, and big off-road tires on them, and you get out on the road with them, and the tires make so much noise, it sounds like you're driving an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, I don't, I guess maybe that's one of the reasons they usually have the music cranked up so loud.
Yeah, so I guess you buy your sound system first, then you do your tires.
Yeah, I got it.
But yeah, it's a very changing and fluid business these days. The way cars are changing, the way modifications are changing, and so on. It's just like we were talking about backup cameras. Now there are some companies offering blind spot that can be retrofitted. They put the light in the A-pillar. This light sits right there. Stuff like that is pretty amazing, really.
There's almost another acquaintance of mine runs a speed shop, an electronics store up here, and he went to a little open house he had a few weeks ago, and everything that we're seeing on the new cars, with possible exception of automatic braking, he can retrofit. Mm-hmm. And not that expensively, actually. So.
Yeah, in some cases it's a lot cheaper than it is when these are in a package. You may have a $4,000 package to get blind spot, and you could retrofit a car. It's in the hundreds of dollars as opposed to thousands.
The blind spot, when it first came out, it was very annoying. The way the manufacturers had set it up, and it made all kind of noises. Now, using primarily just a light, you can sort of catch it out of your corner of your eye, and it's not very upsetting, and it doesn't shock you and make you do something you shouldn't do.
Right.
So, I find it very useful. I think that I mentioned the rear view camera, but I think blind spot monitoring is a very good item because so many drivers just insist on sitting in your blind spot. It's like, pass me for goodness sakes. I don't care, but just don't sit where I can't see you.
Yeah.
And they must go through the same thing, and they're just, of course, oblivious, or they've got their cruise control stuck on whatever, and they're in the left lane, and they refuse to get over the right lane. Most American drivers wouldn't survive 5 minutes on a European Autobahn because if you don't get over, you're going to get run over. It's that simple.
Yeah, we have some of the worst drivers in the world right here, and it's sad to see how, I don't know, it's not demented, but how poorly people are trained and, like you said, undisciplined they are about their driving habits.
Well, they weren't taught very well. We don't require real driving tests in this country compared to the rest of the world. And then, of course, once they've got it, everybody forgets it probably anyway. But I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I spent a couple weeks driving around Central Europe, and we were driving 90 to 100 miles an hour in the right lane because people were going by you in the left lane at 120 to 150. But because everybody was serious, holding onto the wheel, not distracted, or at least most everybody, and abiding by what they consider the rules of the road, you felt totally safe. On the other hand, when I got back, just driving home from the airport, on our roads at speeds that were 60 to 70, I felt far less safe because people were just all over the place. I guess it'll never change, but it is kind of, if we're, one of the reasons the legislatures might be able to actually someday legislate vehicles off the road is because of the crazy drivers and the habits.
Yeah, like earlier in the year, I was on Route 50 headed east, and here comes this guy driving a Jeep without any doors on it, and he's got his left foot outside of the vehicle, rested on the bracket for the mirror or something.
I know, I've seen that several times. It's like, what are you doing?
And to top it all off, you can see right in there, and this one was a manual transmission. And if anything happens, he's got to get that foot in there somehow to depress the clutch. And I'm thinking, oh my God.
That fast.
All right, John, let's take a break. We'll be right back. 844-885-4677 is the number.
Stay Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Don't fall victim to "it looks good, therefore it must be good." Like when thump bump you're tapped by another car at a traffic light or in a parking lot. You get out and look, and being a good person, yeah, right. You just don't want the hassle of calling the cops and your insurance company. Plus, you don't even see a scratch, so you let it go. That could be a minor to deadly mistake. What you see is purely cosmetic, but hidden behind the cosmetics are safety systems. Those hidden parts absorb and dissipate energy, and they may have been damaged in that tiny bump. The problem is that unless you have energy absorbers and crumple zones checked, they may not protect you if your car is hit again in the same spot. Most safety parts are one-time use, and that first minor bump may have used up a portion of their effectiveness. Then, in an actual accident, they're only partially effective. For instance, the energy absorber may transmit more of the crash energy into the car and the people in the car. That could mean the difference between no or minor injuries or something worse, especially for young or elderly passengers. Even in bumps that seem like a total non-issue, take a minute to exchange information, then have the safety parts behind the bumper checked. It might save a life.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
Hey folks, please subscribe to Goss's Garage on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and for more car tips, tricks, and money-saving ideas, visit goss-garage.com. John Davis from MotorWeek is on the line with us. Hey John, got some news. No longer, as far as media is concerned, no longer affiliated in any form with BG Products. They have changed their marketing strategy and they don't need me anymore.
What?
Yeah. So I'm looking for new products to test and so on, to hook up with some other company that has a good line of products. We'll still sell BG products, but we're looking for a lead line of high-quality products that not only can we sell, but can endorse and demonstrate and so on.
Well, that's too bad. I mean, they have a lot of great products, and you've spent a long time promoting their products. That's too bad.
Yeah,
But I'm sure that when that becomes known, somebody else will come in and fill the vacuum.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I guess it's been, gosh, close to 20 years that I've been working with BG, but
I thought it was longer than that.
yeah, might be. I don't know. Time flies sometimes. John, let's talk to Lane from Alexandria, 16 Impala. Lane, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Good morning, Pat. Good morning, John.
Morning.
I've been listening to your conversation. It's really interesting because I can see that some of the stuff that you're talking about has happened to me with this 2016 Impala. I never had a car, and it's an LTZ version. It's a midnight edition.
So it's full up. It's got almost all the options on it.
Yeah, and I've never had a car with this many gadgets on it, and some of them I like, and a lot of them I don't. I really never use the backup camera, even though it comes on, because I'm so used to turning my head, and I like to see with my own eyes what's behind me. But
How long have you had the car?
1 year.
I'm surprised that you haven't changed, because although I will say it probably took us 2 years or 3 even, but we've gotten to the point where it's still a good idea to turn your head, but we use the backup camera for places you cannot see by turning your head, particularly directly behind the car. So you should be using it as an aid, not necessarily as your main thing. The biggest thing that a backup camera can do for you is if there is something, a child, a pet, a bicycle, that has been left directly behind you, you'll see it.
Well, I'm going to try looking at it. I just have to remember it's there. I'm just so used to turning my head when I'm backing up the car.
Well,
It gives you a vision that you can't have otherwise. So you're correct in not depending on it, primarily, which unfortunately a lot of people do. But you need to use it because the next step is basically, which I'm not sure that car has it, are these 360-degree cameras where you,
no, it doesn't
and
have that.
huge helps in parking and so forth.
Also, blind spot monitoring, I found that to be very useful, but I found it also to be very dangerous because a lot of times, depending on the angle a car is coming at you, it will or will not pick it up. And once again, I just turn my head every time I'm changing lanes, and I'm also looking for that little symbol. But the thing that scares me is what you were talking about. It has one of these, if you come too fast on somebody, red lights bounce up on the windshield, on the screen, right in front of you, and it starts making this noise, like a screeching noise.
Right.
And the first time it happened to me when I was driving the car, leaves blew in front of the car. And if you have never seen that before, and no one had ever showed it to me, I didn't know if the car was blowing up. It was that concern. The other thing I didn't like.
The other time that you may experience it when you're not expecting it is if you're going around the corner, mostly on two-lane roads, and there happens to be a telephone pole at the apex of that corner, it will go off. Many of them will go off, and you're thinking, there's nobody in front of me, and what is it doing? And, of course, it scares you if you're not prepared for it, and it's actually picking up, something that's not even on the road.
It not only scares you, but your passengers in the car are saying, what is going on? The lane control, I've never used. I just turned it off.
Yeah.
And it also has electronic brake. And I read the manual, and I can't. I guess you just click it on, the light comes on, and then when you're ready to go, you just try to click it off. And I'm saying, what? This thing doesn't work.
Well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about the system that holds you on a hill, or the system that preloads your brakes for a panic stop?
The parking brake itself, the thing you just click.
Oh, you've got an electronic parking brake.
Right.
Well, it works the same as a regular parking brake.
To just click it on and just click it off. I'm going to do it at the dealership because I've never used it.
Lane, most of those, if it tells you in the manual that you can use it as a hill-holding device, you apply it, and then you can take your foot off the brake, and when you hit the gas, it will release the...
automatically? Okay.
Yeah. You can try that in a parking lot or something, but my car has the same thing. And you just apply it, and you can sit there however long you want, and as soon as you hit the brake in forward, not in reverse, but in forward, it releases the parking brake.
Well, I'll give it a shot sometime.
Also, one other thing is read your owner's manual because, again, I'm not sure on that particular car. Some cars have an automatic hill holding feature that if you stop on a hill and you've got your foot firmly on the brake, you're able to take your foot off the brake and go to the accelerator without it rolling back, and then it will automatically come off. And generally a prerequisite for having that is some kind of electronic parking brake. Yeah.
I'll try it out. I also want to tell you there's an excellent article on driverless cars in the November 17th issue of Car and Driver. It's 31 pages long, and it's outstanding.
Car and Driver.
If you haven't, Car and Driver, November 17 issue, driverless cars are supposedly imminent, is driving dead, and it's 31 pages, and it's absolutely outstanding. I'd recommend it highly. I also read, just real quick so I can get through these, Bob Lutz made in Road and Track, because I read all the automobile magazines. He made an observation that the Volt is going to go away. The rumors he's hearing out of Detroit is the Volt is going to be gone shortly or in a year or two or something.
Well, everybody's watching what's going on with the tax situation. And if the tax situation is such that you won't have the $7,500 or whatever it is in your state, to lower the price on plug-in hybrids and all-electric. It's going to change a lot of production plans. And it's possible that the Volt might go away, but it might be replaced by an SUV that uses the same powertrain. Nobody really knows.
Now to get to a real car, and a real quick question. On a 2001 Ford Focus, my battery, it has that white stuff on the terminal, and I have this battery terminal thing that you can spray on the terminal itself, and for some reason in the back of my mind, I remember reading or hearing a few years ago, you shouldn't spray that stuff on the battery anymore. Have they changed those rules?
No, but that stuff really doesn't do you that much good.
Oh, so you got to take it off and use the baking powder and...
Right. You have to remove the cables, because what you see on the outside has nothing to do with the electrical connection between post and the inside of the cable. You could make that outside just sparkling, shiny, use that stuff and clean it up, and then you could buff it to where it looks like chrome, and the car not even start because you got a bad electrical connection on the inside.
Okay, I'll be out there pulling a cable then today.
On that Volt story, I do remember that report now. It actually came out in this summer. What that is it's not that the Volt itself or the technology might go away, but like I said, they might turn around and use it on an SUV, because they're reviewing 6 cars, including the Impala you just bought, as possible discontinuation, because people are not buying sedans, and they're not buying cars. They're buying SUVs.
I'm surprised people aren't. They don't advertise the Impala. They don't know about the Impala. But when I looked at these cars, I'll tell you, that Impala is one heck of a car.
Oh, it's a fabulous car. You're basically getting a Cadillac with a Chevy badge on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, once again, great conversation. I enjoyed listening to it, and I really appreciate the input.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Lane. Talk to you. All right. Yeah, everything is changing so rapidly. You know, it seems like overnight everybody has migrated from sedans to SUVs and CUVs. I'm not sure I fully understand that, but...
Well, what they're really doing is they're migrating to the American version of the 5-door hatchback that was so popular in Europe for decades. And we've really brought back the station wagon, except now we've got all-wheel drive for the most part.
Right.
If you really cut through it, it's less of a change than it seems, although it does mean that the traditional 4-door sedan with a trunk is going away. And so then you go see somebody like Honda with the all-new Accord and Toyota with the all-new Camry, and boy, is Toyota spending advertising money on it. And they may be the only 2 mid-size sedans left in just a couple of years.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, John, we have music, and that means we have done the show yet one more time. So
always a pleasure, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Say hi to everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All righty. John Davis from MotorWeek. Always a pleasure. And we need to get on out of here, folks. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Steve McMillan and George Stockton for producing today's show. For everyone here at Goss's Garage, I'm Pat Goss. Until next time, please drive gently and say thank you to a veteran on today, Veterans Day. Really appreciate it, all you veterans, for everything that you have sacrificed for us. So see you next time right here in Goss's Garage.